I came home to find my life scattered on the lawn like trash. Clothes, books, my laptop bag, the quilt my mom made me when I was 8, dumped in a pile next to the mailbox. A pair of my underwear was hanging off the edge of the box like a flag of surrender. I stood there, frozen, holding my keys, backpack slipping off my shoulder, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Brenda stood on the porch, arms crossed, sipping from a wine glass even though it was barely 4 p.m. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. "Happy birthday," she said, voice syrupy sweet. "You're 20 now. Time to grow up and get out." My name is Genesis. And that was the moment I realized my father didn't just marry a new woman, he handed my entire life over to a stranger and let her burn it down. I didn't say anything at first, just walked slowly toward the pile, numb. I could hear Ava laughing behind the screen door, the kind of laugh that made your skin crawl. I saw my journal, my mom's handwriting on the first page, and I dropped to my knees, yanking it out from under a half-eaten granola bar wrapper. "What the hell is this?" I finally said, my voice shaking. Brenda shrugged. "House rules. You're not a kid anymore. We need the space." "For what?" I snapped. "So Ava can have her own walk-in closet?" She smirked. "Among other things." I looked up at the window and saw Nash peeking through the blinds. He ducked away when our eyes met. Typical. He always watched, but never said a word. I stood up, fists clenched. "Where's my dad?" Brenda took another sip. "At work. He agrees this is for the best." Bullshit. But also not entirely surprising. My dad hadn't looked me in the eye in months. Ever since Brenda moved in, he'd become this hollow version of himself. Like someone had scooped out his spine and filled him with fear and guilt. It wasn't always like this. After my mom died, it was just the two of us for about a year. We were broken, but we were trying. He cooked, I cleaned, we cried in the kitchen sometimes. We watched old movies and ate popcorn on the couch. Then Brenda showed up. She came with a fake smile, perfect nails, and 2 kids who treated our house like it was a hotel. At first, she pretended to be nice. She'd compliment my hair, ask about school, offer to help with laundry. But it was all surface. Underneath, she was calculating. Every compliment had a hook in it. Every smile came with a price. She started small, rearranged the living room, said it needed a woman's touch, moved my mom's favorite vase into the garage. Then it was the photos. One by one, they disappeared from the walls. I'd find them in drawers, boxes, once even in the trash. When I confronted her, she'd blink innocently. "Oh, I thought we agreed to freshen things up. Your mom wouldn't want the house to feel like a shrine." She always said that. Your mom wouldn't want. She didn't know my mom. She didn't deserve to say her name. 3 weeks ago, I came home and found my mom's photo album, our family vacations, birthdays, her hospital selfies when she was trying to stay brave. Gone. Brenda claimed she never touched it, but I found it in the bottom of a garbage bag, soaked in coffee grounds. Now this. "Get off the lawn," she said, like I was some delivery she didn't order. "You're embarrassing yourself." I stared at her, my mouth dry. "You don't get to do this." She raised an eyebrow. "Actually, I do. Joseph and I are married. This is our house now." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Screaming wouldn't change anything. Brenda thrived on chaos. She wanted me to lose control so she could play the victim. Instead, I picked up my laptop bag and the quilt. I turned around without another word and walked down the driveway. I didn't even make it to the end of the block before I started crying. I ended up at the park, sitting on a bench under the big oak tree. My hands were shaking. My phone buzzed with a text from Rohan. "Happy birthday! Want to grab cake later?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stared at the sky, trying to breathe through the anger and the grief and the humiliation. Then I remembered the envelope. 2 months ago, my grandmother, my mom's mom, had pressed it into my hand after Sunday lunch. "Don't open it until your 20th birthday," she said. "Your mom wanted you to have this. She made me promise." I hadn't thought much of it. I tucked it into the back of my desk drawer and forgot about it. Now I pulled it out of my bag and stared at it. My name was written in my mom's handwriting, bold, slanted, alive. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were three things: a letter, a legal-looking document, and a small silver key. The letter was short. Genesis. If you're reading this, it means I'm not there to fight for you, so I made sure you could fight for yourself. This house is not Brenda's. It's not your father's. It's yours. Starting today. Tell Aunt Jacqueline. She'll know what to do. Love you always. Mom. I blinked, reading the words over and over. The document was a trust agreement. It named me as the sole owner of the house effective on my 20th birthday, which was today. I sat there for a long time, the paper fluttering in my hands, heart racing. Brenda thought she won. She didn't know what was coming. I called Aunt Jacqueline from the park. She picked up on the second ring. Genesis? Her voice was sharp, alert. I opened the envelope, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She left me the house. There was a pause, then a breath. Good, I was wondering when you'd remember it. She threw me out, I said. Brenda, on my birthday. My stuff's in the yard. Another pause. You have the papers? Right here. Listen to me carefully, she said. You walk back in there. You don't yell. You don't cry. You show her the documents and you tell her she has 30 days to vacate. No more, no less. I don't know if I can. You can. Your mother made sure of it. Now go and call me when it's done. I hung up and stared at the trust papers again. My name, clear as day. The ownership transfer date, today. I didn't understand half the legal jargon, but the bold line at the bottom was impossible to miss. Beneficiary, Genesis. I stood up, wiped my face, and walked back toward the house. When I got there, my stuff was still on the lawn. Brenda was gone from the porch, but the front door was wide open. I stepped over my jeans and textbooks and walked inside like I'd never left. The living room smelled like her perfume, too sweet, like rotting fruit. Ava was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, legs draped over the armrest like she owned the place. She looked up. Didn't take you long to crawl back. I ignored her and kept walking. Brenda was in the kitchen, pouring herself another glass of wine. She turned when she heard me. Well, look who... I dropped the papers on the counter in front of her. She blinked. What's this? Proof, I said. This house isn't yours, it's mine. My mom set up a trust. It transferred to me today on my 20th birthday. She laughed. You're joking. Read it. She picked up the papers, eyes scanning the page. Her smile twitched, then vanished. What is this crap? She snapped. This isn't legal. It is, I said calmly. My aunt's the trustee. You have 30 days to leave. Joseph walked in from the garage, wiping his hands with a rag. He looked between us. What's going on? Brenda shoved the papers at him. Your daughter thinks she owns the house. He stared at the document. His face went pale. Joe, Brenda said, voice rising. Say something. He didn't. He just kept reading. I stepped closer. Did you know? Did you sign this? He looked at me, eyes hollow. I thought it was part of the will. Something your mom wanted in case... In case what? I asked. In case you remarried a woman who threw your daughter out on her birthday? Genesis, please. No. You stood there and let her humiliate me. You let her erase Mom from this house, and you said nothing. Brenda slammed her glass down. This is ridiculous. We've lived here for 2 years. You can't just kick us out. I can, I said. And I will. Ava stormed in. Are you serious right now? You think you can just waltz in and act like you run this place? I don't think, I said. I know. Brenda snatched the papers back. This isn't over. I'm calling a lawyer. Do that, I said. You've got 30 days. She glared at me, eyes full of venom. You think you're so clever, but this isn't what your mother would have wanted. I stepped closer, voice low. You don't get to speak for her. Joseph looked like he wanted to disappear. Can we just talk about this, maybe? No, I said. You had your chance. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, heart pounding. Ava muttered something under her breath, but I didn't care. I went upstairs to my room, and shut the door behind me. It was still painted the soft blue my mom and I picked out when I was 15, but the posters were gone. The bookshelf was empty. The bed was stripped. I sat on the bare mattress and pulled out my phone. I texted Aunt Jacqueline. I told them 30 days. They're pissed. She replied instantly, "Good, I'll be there in the morning. We'll go over everything." I leaned back against the wall, still shaking. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was adrenaline. They thought they could push me out, erase me, take everything my mother built. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. This wasn't their house. It was mine. And I was just getting started. Brenda was already on the phone when I came downstairs the next morning. Her voice was sharp, fake sweet in that way people get when they're talking to someone they want to impress. "Yes, I understand, but this is a very sudden situation." No, of course I didn't know about the trust. She turned her back when she saw me, hunching her shoulders like I couldn't still hear every word. I walked past her into the kitchen and started making coffee. The silence between us was thick, except for her voice trying to twist the story to whatever lawyer she had on the line. Ava stormed in next, wearing one of my old hoodies, my hoodie, with a scowl on her face. "This is insane," she said. "You can't just evict us." I didn't look at her. "I gave you 30 days. That's more than fair." She scoffed. "You're such a bitch." I poured my coffee and turned to face her. "And you're still in my house." Ava's mouth opened, but she didn't have a comeback. She stormed out, muttering under her breath. Jacqueline showed up 15 minutes later, wearing sunglasses and carrying a manila folder under her arm. She didn't even knock, just walked in like she owned the place. "Morning," she said, nodding at me. "Where's the queen?" "In the living room. On the phone." Jacqueline smirked. "Perfect." She marched in, heels clicking against the hardwood. Brenda was mid-sentence when she spotted her. "Oh, I'll have to call you back," Brenda said quickly, hanging up. "What are you doing here?" "Making sure Genesis doesn't get steamrolled by your nonsense," Jacqueline said, setting the folder down on the coffee table. "Let's go over the facts." Joseph wandered in, looking like he hadn't slept. "Jacqueline, maybe we could all just sit down." "No need," she said. "This isn't a negotiation." She opened the folder and pulled out a copy of the trust document, along with a notarized letter from the estate attorney. "This house legally belongs to Genesis." Lydia made sure of it. "Joseph, you signed the paperwork 6 months before she passed. You may not have read it, but your signature's right here." She pointed to the line. Joseph leaned over, squinting. "I thought it was just a will," he mumbled. "She said it was about making sure Genesis was taken care of." "She was," Jacqueline said, "and now she's taking care of herself. Brenda, you have 30 days to vacate. After that, we file for legal eviction." Brenda's face twisted. "You can't do this. We have rights." "You don't," Jacqueline said, calm as ever. "You're not on the deed. You're not on the trust. You're not even a tenant. You're a guest. And your invitation has expired." Ava came back in, arms crossed. "What about us? We go to school here. We have lives." "You should have thought about that before treating Genesis like garbage," Jacqueline snapped. "Actions have consequences." Joseph sat down on the edge of the couch, hands in his lap. "I didn't know it would come to this." "You let it come to this," I said quietly. "You watched it happen." He looked up at me, eyes tired. "I didn't know how to stop it." "You could have tried," I said. "You didn't." Jacqueline handed me the folder. "Keep this safe. It has all the documents you need. If they try anything, call me." Brenda stood up, shaking. "You think you've won? This isn't over." Jacqueline smiled. "Oh, honey, it's just beginning." We left the living room and walked back into the kitchen. Jacqueline poured herself a cup of coffee like she'd done it 100 times. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just tired." She leaned against the counter. "There's more in that trust than just the house. Lydia was smart. She didn't trust anyone, not after what she suspected." I looked at her. "Suspected what?" Jacqueline gave me a long look. "We'll get into it. But first, you need to find the key." "What key?" She pulled a small note from her purse. It had my mom's handwriting on it. "Genesis. Look inside the red box in my keepsake drawer. The key is taped underneath. You'll know what to do when the time comes." My stomach twisted. "I think I know where that is." "Good." When you find it, call me. There's a safety deposit box. That's where the rest of the puzzle is." She sipped her coffee. "Lydia didn't just leave you a house, she left you the truth. All of it." I nodded slowly, heart pounding. From the hallway, I heard Brenda slamming cabinets, Ava yelling something about lawyers. Nash's door creaked open upstairs, then shut again. Jacqueline looked toward the noise. "They're going to make this hell for you. You know that, right?" "I know. You ready for it?" I looked her in the eye. "I've been ready since the day they moved in." She smiled. "That's my girl." I found the red box that night. It was buried in the back of my mom's old dresser, the one Brenda had shoved into the garage after moving in. I had to move a pile of broken lawn chairs and a cracked mirror just to get to it. The box was dusty, but I recognized it instantly. My mom used to keep all her little treasures in there: movie stubs, letters, pressed flowers. I flipped it over and found the key taped underneath, just like the note said. It was small, silver, and cold in my hand. The next morning, I called Jacqueline. "I found it," I said. "Good. Meet me at the bank at noon. Bring ID." She hung up before I could ask anything else. When I got there, she was already waiting outside, dressed like she was heading to court. We walked in together, and 15 minutes later, a bank manager was unlocking a safety deposit box in a private room. Inside was a thick folder, a small flash drive, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. Jacqueline didn't say anything. She just nodded for me to open it. I started with the folder. It was filled with original trust documents. Some I had seen, others I hadn't. There were also printed emails, dozens of them. They were between my dad and Brenda, starting months before my mom died. One of them made my stomach turn. "You said she wouldn't last the year. I'm not waiting forever, Joe. If you want this life with me, you need to make a decision." Another one. "She's too stubborn to sign anything. You need to talk to the doctor about changing her care plan." I looked up at Jacqueline, my hands shaking. "She knew," I whispered. Jacqueline nodded. "She suspected the affair. She told me she felt like she was being pushed out of her own life. That's when she started moving things into the trust, quietly. She didn't want to believe it, but she wasn't stupid." I opened the envelope next. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Genesis. If you're reading this, it means they tried to erase me, but they didn't win. I knew something wasn't right. Your father changed after Brenda came around. I didn't want to believe he'd betray me, but I couldn't risk leaving you with nothing. There's money, a second trust, $300,000. It's yours, but it's locked unless you bring this letter and the documents to the estate attorney. Jacqueline knows. Take back what's yours. Don't let them shame you for surviving. Love you always. Mom." I sat there for a long time, staring at her handwriting. It felt like she was in the room with me again. Jacqueline placed a hand on my arm. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I am." We left the bank and drove in silence. When I got home, the front door was wide open. Ava was screaming, "You're not even trying. We can't just leave. This is our house, too." I stepped inside. Brenda was pacing, phone in hand, hair a mess. "Do you think I'm not doing everything I can?" she snapped. "I've called every lawyer in the county. No one wants to touch it once they see the documents." Ava turned and saw me. "This is your fault. I gave you 30 days, I said. You're wasting them." Brenda hung up and grabbed her wine glass. "You think you're so clever, but you're not the only one who knows how to play the game." She stormed out of the room. Ava followed, slamming the basement door behind her. I walked into the kitchen and found Nash sitting at the table, headphones around his neck, staring at a cracked phone screen. He looked up, startled. "Hey," he said. "Hey." He shifted awkwardly. "They're freaking out." I noticed. He hesitated. "I didn't know about the trust, or the house, I swear." "I believe you." He looked down. "They're saying you cheated, that you manipulated everything." I laughed dryly. "Yeah? How'd I do that? From the grave?" He cracked a small smile. "Just saying what I heard." There was a long pause. "I didn't mean to break that photo," he said suddenly. "The one of your mom, it just fell." I nodded. Thanks for saying that. He stood up. I'm not like them. I know. He walked out without another word. Later that night, I called Rohan. I need help going through some files, I said. You still good with computers? Always. Want me to come over? Yeah. He showed up with 2 energy drinks and a laptop. We sat on the floor of my room, going through the flash drive from the deposit box. Most of it was financial records, bank statements, transfers, emails. Then we found it, a spreadsheet. Brenda had been transferring small amounts of money, $200 here, $500 there, from my dad's account into one with her name on it. It went back over a year. She's been stealing from him, Rohan said. Looks like it. We kept digging, found a few more emails. One where Brenda told someone she was prepping the house for resale once the girl's gone. I sat back, heart pounding. She was planning to sell it, I said, after kicking me out. Rohan looked at me. You have everything you need now? You ready to burn it down? I met his eyes. Yeah, I said. Let's do it. Brenda refused to leave. She didn't even pretend to pack. Instead, she doubled down, walking around like she still ran the place, leaving passive, aggressive notes on the fridge and blasting music late at night. Ava started slamming doors and accidentally spilling drinks on my things. Nash kept to himself more, mostly hiding in his room with his headphones on. I started locking my bedroom door. One morning, I came downstairs and found the kitchen trashed. Plates in the sink, cereal spilled across the counter, milk dripping from the edge like someone had poured it out just to watch it fall. Ava stood there, arms crossed, chewing gum. Oops, she said. Guess you'll have to clean that up. I stared at her. Not my mess. She smirked. It's your house, isn't it? I didn't answer. I just turned and walked out. Later that day, I found the framed photo of my mom, one of the last we ever took together, shattered on the floor in the hallway. The glass was cracked, the frame bent. Nash came out of his room, saw it, and froze. I didn't mean to, he said quickly. I bumped it. I swear. I looked at him. He actually looked guilty. I believe you, I said, but maybe tell your sister to stop acting like a 5-year-old. He nodded, eyes low. She's just mad. She thinks you're ruining everything. I'm fixing what she never had a right to, I said. Big difference. That night, I sat in the garage with Rohan, going through more files. He had his laptop open, scrolling through emails we pulled from my dad's old account. Here, he said suddenly. Look at this one. It was an email chain between Brenda and my dad, dated 3 months before my mom died. Brenda. She's not getting better. You said we'd be together by Christmas. Dad. I'm doing what I can. She won't sign the papers. Brenda. Then talk to the doctor. You said you had influence. Use it. I stared at the screen, my skin crawling. She pushed him, I said, to change Mom's care. Rohan nodded. And he did it. We sat in silence for a minute. She trusted him, I said, and he let her down. Rohan looked at me. You're not him. I nodded, jaw tight. I know. The next day, I printed everything. Emails, bank transfers, the trust documents. I put them in a folder and called a lawyer Jacqueline recommended. We met in her office, a small space downtown with too many books and a plant that looked like it hadn't been watered in weeks. She flipped through the folder, eyebrows raised. This is solid, she said. You've got enough to file for eviction and possibly fraud charges. I want to do both, I said. She looked at me over her glasses. You sure? This will get ugly. They made it ugly the second they threw my life on the lawn. She nodded. Okay, let's begin. Back at the house, Brenda was in the backyard, yelling into her phone while smoking a cigarette. Ava was filming herself in the mirror, probably for some TikTok. Nash was nowhere to be seen. I walked past them all and went straight to my room. That night, I left a copy of the eviction notice on the kitchen counter. I didn't say a word. The next morning, all hell broke loose. Brenda stormed into the living room, waving the paper like it was on fire. You think this scares me? She yelled. You think you're going to win? Joseph was sitting in the recliner, staring at the floor. He didn't say a word. You're a spoiled brat, Brenda hissed at me. Your mother poisoned you against your own father. She was always manipulative. I stood up. Don't talk about her. She left you a house and turned you into a monster, she snapped. You're just like her. If I were like her, I said, you'd already be gone. Brenda's face twisted. You think you're better than us? I don't have to think it, I said. I just have to wait for the court date. She threw the notice across the room and stormed out. Joseph finally looked up. Genesis? I turned to him. Don't. I didn't know what I was doing, he said. I didn't think it would go this far. You didn't think at all, I said. You let her take over. You let her hurt me. You let Mom die thinking she was alone. He stood up, hands shaking. I was scared. I didn't know how to fix it. You don't get to fix it now, I said. You made your choice. He sat back down, eyes glassy. I walked out. Upstairs, I found Nash in the hallway. I heard everything, he said. Good. He looked at me. I'm sorry. I nodded. Me too. He hesitated. If I leave with them? Do I have to? I looked at him. That's up to you. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say more, then closed it and walked back into his room. I went back to mine, locked the door, and sat down at my desk. The house was quiet now, but the war wasn't over. It was just changing shape. 2 days before the court date, I stood outside the bank with Rohan, the silver key in my hand. You sure you're ready for this? He asked. I nodded. It's time. Inside, we were led to a private room where the safety deposit box waited. I unlocked it slowly, heart pounding. The box slid open with a metallic clunk. Inside was another folder, thicker than the first, and a small voice recorder with a sticky note. Play me when you're alone. I grabbed everything and we left without saying much. Back home, I locked my bedroom door and sat on the floor with Rohan. I pressed play. My mom's voice filled the room. Genesis, if you're hearing this, it means they tried to erase me. But they didn't win. I knew Brenda was dangerous the moment I saw how your father looked at her. I wanted to believe it was just grief, but it wasn't. Rohan glanced at me, but said nothing. I started recording things, conversations, emails. I couldn't prove much at first, but then he started talking about changing my care plan, about how tired he was, about how it might be better if I just let go. My hands tightened around the recorder. I was scared, not of dying, of leaving you with them. That's why I made the trust. That's why I gave Jacqueline the authority. I didn't want to believe he'd betray me, but I couldn't risk it. I'm sorry. I love you, and I know you'll be stronger than both of them. The recording clicked off. Rohan exhaled. Jesus. She knew, I whispered. She knew everything. We opened the folder next. Inside were more documents, bank statements, emails, and a notarized letter from Mom's doctor. It confirmed that her care plan had been altered without her full consent. She was right, I said. They pushed her into hospice early. Rohan pointed to the statements. And look at this. Brenda's been slowly draining your dad's savings. Over $20,000 in small transfers. She's been stealing from him the whole time. I stood up, grabbed my phone, and called Jacqueline. We found everything, I said. The recordings, the financials, the medical stuff. Brenda's done. Good, she said. Send it all to the lawyer. We'll file charges before a court. I hung up and turned to Rohan. Let's finish this. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and found Brenda sitting at the table, wineglass in hand, even though it was barely 9 a.m. She looked up at me, eyes bloodshot. You think you've won? I don't think, I said. I know. She laughed bitterly. You don't understand what it's like to lose everything. You mean like having your mom die and your dad replace her with a woman who threw out her pictures? She slammed the glass down. I gave this house a second chance. I made it livable again. You made it toxic. She stood, trembling. You're just a spoiled little girl playing grown-up. I'm a homeowner with a lawyer, I said, and you're leaving in 2 days. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind her. That night, Joseph knocked on my door. I opened it halfway, arms crossed. I heard about the charges, he said quietly. Then you know what's coming. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. I didn't know she was stealing from me. You knew she was hurting me. He looked down. I didn't know how to stop it. I stepped aside and let him in. He sat on the edge of my bed, hands clasped. I made mistakes, he said. I was weak. After your mom died, I didn't know how to be alone. So you let her replace everything, even me. He looked up, eyes wet. I didn't mean to. But you did it anyway. He nodded. I'm sorry. I sat across from him. You don't get to fix this with an apology. I know, he whispered. He stood up and walked to the door. I'll be at court. I won't fight it. You shouldn't. He paused. I loved your mother. I just didn't know how to love her right. I didn't answer. He left without saying anything else. The next morning, I walked into the living room to find Nash sitting on the stairs with a duffel bag. You leaving early? I asked. He nodded. A friend's letting me crash for a bit. I nodded back. Good call. He stood up, hesitated, then handed me a folded piece of paper. I'm sorry, he said, for everything. I opened it after he left. It was short. Thanks for not treating me like trash, even when everyone else did. I folded it up and tucked it into my drawer. Court was the next day, and I was ready. Court felt colder than it should have, not the temperature, just the air. Stiff, tense, like everyone in the room was holding their breath. I sat next to my lawyer at the front, my folder of documents clutched in my lap. Jacqueline was behind me, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Rohan had offered to come, but I told him no. This part I needed to do by myself. Brenda walked in 10 minutes late, wearing a tight black dress and oversized sunglasses like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Ava trailed behind her, chewing gum and glaring at me like I'd kicked her puppy. Joseph came in last. He didn't sit with them. He sat in the back row by himself, hands folded, eyes low. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Then we got started. My lawyer opened with the trust documents, laying out the timeline, my mother's death, the transfer of the house on my 20th birthday, the eviction notice, and Brenda's refusal to leave. Then came the evidence. Your Honor, my lawyer said, we have reason to believe the respondent not only attempted an unlawful eviction of my client, but also committed financial fraud and coercion during the final months of the previous homeowner's life. She handed over the emails, the bank transfers, the notarized letter from the doctor, the audio recording. The judge listened to my mom's voice in silence. When the recording ended, he looked up at Brenda. Do you have a response to these allegations? Brenda stood, smoothing her dress. Your Honor, this is a personal vendetta. This girl has been hostile since I married her father. She's twisting things. That recording, who knows when it was made? The date is embedded in the metadata, my lawyer said, and the doctor has verified the care changes were not fully consented to. Brenda's lips tightened. I didn't force anyone to do anything. I was trying to support my husband. We were grieving. And the money? The judge asked. The transfers from his account to yours? She hesitated. That was agreed upon for household expenses. Joseph stood up suddenly. No, it wasn't. Everyone turned. I didn't agree to any of that, he said. She told me she'd take care of the bills. I didn't know she was moving money into her personal account. Brenda's head whipped around. Joe, what are you doing? He looked at her, then at me. Telling the truth. The judge nodded slowly. Thank you for clarifying. Ava started whispering loudly, and the judge shot her a glare. Miss, if you can't remain quiet, I'll ask you to leave. She slumped back in her seat. My lawyer continued. Your Honor, my client has made every reasonable effort to resolve this peacefully. She gave the respondents 30 days to vacate. They refused. She has legal ownership of the property and is now seeking formal removal. The judge looked down at the papers in front of him, then back up. I've reviewed the evidence. The trust is valid. The transfer of ownership is clear. The eviction notice was lawful. Additionally, the financial documentation and audio recording raise serious concerns that may warrant further investigation. Brenda's mouth dropped open. Therefore, the judge continued, I am granting the eviction order. The respondents have 72 hours to vacate the premises. Any further resistance will result in law enforcement involvement. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Brenda exploded. This is insane. That house is mine. I made it a home. The judge banged his gavel once. You are dismissed, ma'am. She turned to Joseph. You spineless piece of... Don't, he said. Just stop. She stormed out, Ava chasing after her, still shouting about how unfair everything was. I stood up and turned to Joseph. He looked at me, eyes full of something I couldn't name. I'm sorry, he said again. I walked over, folder still in hand. You could have stopped this, I said. You chose her. He nodded, slow and heavy. I know. I didn't say anything else. I just walked past him and out the door. Jacqueline caught up with me outside. You did it. I nodded. Yeah, I did. You okay? No, I said. But I will be. Back at the house, Brenda's car was already gone. Ava's bedroom door was wide open, clothes and makeup scattered across the floor. Nash's room was empty too, bed stripped, notes still tucked in my drawer. I walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table. Everything was quiet. The war was over, but the silence felt like a bruise. I painted the walls myself. Jacqueline offered to hire someone, but I said no. I needed to do it. The soft blue my mom and I picked when I was 15 was gone, replaced with a warm, deep green. Something new, something mine. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, sipping coffee. You missed a spot. I turned, grinning. Liar. She laughed. Maybe, but I like watching you work. I dipped the roller again. Feels good, like I'm scrubbing them off the walls. Jacqueline walked in and set the coffee down. The studio's coming together. I nodded, one room at a time. We spent the rest of the afternoon putting up shelves and unpacking boxes I hadn't touched in years. Old notebooks, sketch pads, scraps of my mom's handwriting. I found a photo of us at the beach, her in a sun hat, me with a mouthful of ice cream. Jacqueline sat beside me on the floor. She'd be proud. I hope so. She touched my shoulder. She would. Later that evening, I heard the front door creak open. I walked out of the studio and found Nash standing in the hallway holding a small box. Hey, he said. Hey. He held out the box. Some of your stuff ended up in my room. Thought you might want it. I took it and peeked inside. A few of my books, a necklace my mom gave me, and my favorite mug. Thanks. He shifted awkwardly. I'm staying with a friend. Not sure what's next. You'll figure it out. He nodded. I just wanted to say, you didn't deserve any of it. And I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. I looked at him. You said something when it mattered. He gave a small smile. Ava's still posting about you, saying you faked everything, that you tricked everyone. Let her. He hesitated. People aren't buying it. I know. He looked around the house, then back at me. It feels different now. It is. He nodded again, then turned to leave. Take care of yourself, Genesis. You too. He walked out the door without looking back. The next morning, I got a text from Joseph. Can I see you? Just to talk. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Come by at noon. 15 minutes. That's it. He was on time, knocked once, then waited. I opened the door and let him in without a word. He looked around like he was seeing the house for the first time. You painted? Yeah. It looks good. I didn't respond. He sat down at the kitchen table. I moved into a small place. Not much, but it's mine. I stayed standing. He cleared his throat. I didn't come to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know. I've started counseling. I'm trying to figure out how I let it all happen. I crossed my arms. You didn't just let it happen. You helped her. He nodded. I know. I needed you, I said. And you picked her. I was weak. You were a coward. He looked down. I was. We sat in silence for a moment. I loved your mother, he said quietly. Not enough. He flinched but didn't argue. I don't hate you, I said, but I don't trust you, and I don't think I want you in my life right now. He nodded slowly. I understand. He stood and walked to the door, then paused. If you ever change your mind. I didn't answer. He left. That night, I sat on the back porch with Rohan. We watched the sky turn orange behind the trees. The garden my mom started was overgrown, but the roses were still blooming. You ever think about selling? He asked. I shook my head. This house is mine. I'm not running from it. He nodded. Good. He leaned back, hands behind his head. You know, for a girl who got tossed out on her birthday, you came back like a wrecking ball. I smiled. Had to. He looked at me. So, what now? I stood and walked to the garden, brushing my fingers over the petals. I rebuild. Later, I sat on my bed and opened the last part of my mom's letter. I hadn't read it all before. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Let them try to destroy you. Everything they build on lies will fall apart on truth. You don't owe anyone your silence, your comfort, or your forgiveness. Own your name, own your story, and never let them make you small. I folded it back up and placed it in the drawer next to Nash's note. Then I walked outside, barefoot, into the garden. The air was cool. The stars were just starting to peek through. I knelt beside the roses, pulled a few weeds, and whispered, Mom didn't leave me a house. I stood up, dirt on my hands, heart steady. She left me justice.